Hello, Afternators, and welcome to the channel. My name is Charles. As always, thank you so much for watching. If you like what you see here, remember to go ahead and click that like button, leave a comment, and remember to subscribe. The Wolf of Wall Street, Basic Instinct 1 and 2, all the 50 Shades movies. What do these films have in common? They've all been rated R here in the US for sexually explicit material. Now, one of the big things that everybody was talking about with the after film adaptation that's getting ready to come out based on the book by Anna Todd is what is the rating going to be. And yesterday I made a video talking about the fact that it did officially get a PG-13 here in the US, and it has been rated PG-13 for sexual content and some college partying. Now, Anna Todd, the woman who wrote the book, pretty much gave the more diplomatic response to pretty much sit there and say, well, before anybody flips out, watch the movie, watch the trailers. You can see that we pretty much straddle that line between PG-13 and R. I'm not happy about this. This is one of the decisions that this was out of my control, sad emoticon. But again, a very diplomatic response. The thing that kind of charged me into the idea that I'm going to make this video is that Jennifer Gibgot, another producer on the film, just flat out came out and said, to everyone who is upset, we tested the movie in the US and the audience felt there was too much sex, so we cut it to a PG-13. Not our fault, the rest of the world is R. Now, I'm going to get this next bit of information from an Instagram called after.facts, and what this person says is, obviously, the part where she says the rest of the world is R is not very true. In most countries where the rating has been released, it has been PG-12 and 13 and B-15 and 16. So that means that the distributor of your country is the one who decides the rating and if they want to cut some scenes. The only thing left to say is let the Hunger Games begin and may the odds be ever in your favor. So yeah, that first little part, because again, it's kind of calling out Jennifer Gibgot a little bit, saying like, yeah, this is not really accurate, which again, it makes no sense with what Jennifer Gibgot is actually saying, because again, there are so many films that you can point to where here in the US that they have gotten an R for sexually explicit content, and there's been no problem. So why is this film any different? Why is this film now being tested and, being said like, oh no, they're like, oh, because she's playing on this idea that US audiences are way too prudish. And, like, oh, trying to pit us as like the U.S. versus the international, and, oh, you better be over international because over there you're going to get like the real version of this movie, and in the U.S. you're going to get like the kiddie, PG-13, version of it, and we're not happy about this. Now, as I said in the video yesterday, from a purely business standpoint, it makes sense for this film to be PG-13 because when I look at my channel and I look at the demographics, when I look at the ages of some of the people who have been, watching my channel and my little, analytics, the underage crowd pretty much kind of shot up a little bit when I started talking about after. When I look at the fan events that have been held around the country and around the world, I pretty much see that, yes, there's a lot of underage people there. So it makes sense that they are not going, that from a studio standpoint, from a completely business standpoint, they are, just going to, cut, themselves off of the legs and pretty much hurt any chances of this movie making any money. Now, I think that she came out and said something and started, kind of trying to, put this on like, hey, we had nothing to do with this shit, is mainly because I think they see that this film has the potential, unfortunately, to fail, and they're doing one of the things that I hate. Whenever a film fails, instead of actually taking, because you're one of the producers, you actually have a say in this. Instead of taking, responsibility for some of the decisions that you made, pretty much they try to back off and say like, oh, I had nothing to do with this. I washed my hands of this. This is not my idea. This was not my idea. Basically, let me go ahead and quote something else because I remember this. Do you remember how there was a movie called The Mortal Instruments City of Bones that came out back in 2013, which was based on the first book of the Cassandra Clare Shadowhunters franchise, even like with the TV show that is on Freeform. So they took like a lot of pictures with Cassandra Clare or Cassie Clare on set, pretty much saying like, hey, she's involved. But then all of a sudden the movie comes out and then the TV show comes out and she's like, I had nothing to do with this. Don't put this on me. Don't get angry at me. We had nothing to do with this. And that's where it feels like where we are right now, is that this producer is trying to placate some of the more vocal fans who are screaming and yelling about this, and pretty much trying to pull the whole, I don't blame me. This is not our decision. Blame the prudish U.S. audience. But like I said, there are countless films that have come out here in the U.S. that have gotten sexually explicit. That have been sexually explicit, that have gotten R ratings, and there's been no problem there. So why all of a sudden are they doing it with why is there a problem with this? Now, do I think that the after film should have been R? From a business standpoint, no. From a person who read the book, who knows the book, who, again, here's this short little plug. Go on over to the channel. You'll find my complete read-through of the book. From that standpoint, yes, this thing should have been an R. There's a lot of sexually explicit material, so I don't understand why all of a sudden the test audience, because then that becomes my next big question. Who did you test this for? Who did you bring in as a test audience for this? Were they fans of the book, or were they just some general audience people that maybe they were a little, prudish, conservative leaning, who, started complaining? Or are these fans of the book who said, you know what, this story is strong enough to stand on its own, that, maybe you don't need, so much sex in here, you can just, let the story play out. Now, the question is now going to become, because like I said, After.Facts, the Instagram on there, like their first part pretty much said that, no, you are wrong. The rest of the world is not, you're not being very honest when you say that the rest of the world is R, because most of the countries where the rating has been released has been PG-12/13 and B-15/16. So my question is, what is the point of all of this? Like, why does it seem like they're kind of, because I'm wondering if because like I think not Cassie Claire Heavens, Anna Todd, I think that she gave the very diplomatic response, where she pretty much said, hey, let's wait for the film to come out. You'll see, you'll be very happy with it. It straddles that line. It's between 12 and PG-13 and R. It just straddles that line, and, all that fun jazz. But no, Jennifer Gibgot just pretty much came out and said, no, if you want to blame somebody, blame the prudish, U.S. audiences that we tested this movie or that we tested this movie with, and said we had too much sex, and so we cut it down to a PG-13. I hope that they come out and clarify this. I hope that they come out and talk a little bit more about this, especially as more ratings start to trickle in from overseas, because then I got to start to ask the question, the film is going to be an hour and 46 minutes. According to as I said in an earlier video, according to the Canadian film ratings, it says that the runtime of the film is an hour and 46 minutes. So if there's too much sex in the film, if you started, having to chip away at the runtime to cut out these sequences, so does that mean that here in the US, or even, up in Canada, that, oh, we're going to get, an hour and 46, in and out, choppily, terribly edited movie, whereas the rest of the world is going to get like, what, a 2-hour film? You kind of need to, start, explaining this a little bit better. You need to start, kind of coming out and maybe saying a little bit more about this, because like I said, from a business standpoint, it makes sense for this film to be PG-13, because this is a film that I think has been piss poor marketed by Avrion Pictures, by the theaters, because I literally, a couple of weeks ago was like the first time that I got a poster up in one of my theaters, the weekend of March 8th, when Captain Marvel came out. Like, that was like the first time I actually saw a poster up for this film. I know that some people are probably going to unsubscribe to me and probably curse me out for saying all this, but to me personally, I think it needs to be said, because I don't think it's fair to throw U.S. test audiences under the bus, or throw U.S. audience. Well, I'm not going to sit here and say that we're not prudish. We are. Believe me, we are. But I just don't think that it's fair to throw us under the bus. I don't think it's fair, to pretty much just like throw us into the middle of the street and watch as like an 18-wheeler just, completely runs over us, pretty much saying like, oh, don't blame us, blame the, prudish, U.S. audiences, because that's exactly how Jennifer Gibgot's statement reads to me personally. Because to me, I'm just going to sit here and say that, like I said, from a purely business standpoint, this film needs all the help that it can get to be successful. I want it to be successful. I want to see this series continue, but I don't want this to turn into, one thing where I'm sitting there watching a poorly edited, piss poor edited film where I can tell that chunks have been taken out of this film. Because let me put it like this. When The Wolf of Wall Street came out, this Leonardo DiCaprio, Martin Scorsese, I mean, sex, drug, language filled. I'll probably put up a review for that at some point in the next couple of months. But when that film came out and they did like some, heavy editing overseas, one of the main complaints from people overseas is that you could tell every single time that they did an edit to the film. So what I'm kind of wondering is that for us here in the US, if this is true, if everybody else is going to get an R-rated film, which one person has already come out to say, okay, that's complete, that's a lie, that's untrue, you're not being honest. But if we're going to get a different version than overseas, then am I going to sit there in a US theater? Because again, I don't have money for a ticket to go overseas. I don't have money, to go overseas. Nor does the majority of people who will probably watch this video, unless you're watching this overseas. So am I going to be sitting there watching a poorly edited version where I can tell that there's, chunks being taken out? There's like 20 minutes missing, 10, 15, 20 minutes. Like I can just tell that there are sequences missing. Or is this just not being very truthful and you're just passing the buck going like, okay, so we kind of made the idea to, make this a, line straddling PG-13/R-rated movie. But, now that the audience is pretty much screaming and yelling at us, we're trying to pass the buck and going like, nope, don't blame us. We had nothing to do with this. So yeah, jump down to the comment section below. Let me know what you think. Please don't unsubscribe. Go ahead and, click that like button, leave a comment. Remember to subscribe. I'll see you later, after Naders. Please don't hate me.